Well, thanks, Brent, for joining me today. Happy to be joined by Brent Kluver, Vice President of Project Development with Ironmark Building Company, based right here in Minneapolis. How you doing today, Brent?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. So, um, just by way of a little bit of background, Brent is a actively involved in the front end of every project. He works closely with owners and the design team from conception to ground break and works collaboratively with the entire project team to ensure accurate pricing is obtained during the document design phase and will ensure the project remains within its original target budget. Brent has extensive knowledge in the design build process and is very familiar with working alongside the design team as the design progresses, making sure the owner is getting the most cost efficient, highest quality products. So Brent, I guess if we could just start out by maybe you could introduce us to your company, talk a little bit about how long you've been in business and the types of work you chase. It looks like you do a lot of urban infill
Mhm.
work. Is that correct?
Yeah, so just kind of start at the beginning. Ironmark, obviously, we're a commercial general contractor. We started the firm back in 2012, kind of with this vision to build high quality projects for a lot of our really discerning clients. So since that time, since kind of conception, we've completed well over 50 to 60, maybe 70 projects, probably around $700 million of work so far contracted. While we've been around for 10 to 12 years, Ironmark as a name is fairly new. About 18 months ago, we had some management changes, and along with that, we did kind of a relaunch, rebrand of the business. So we're the same great company, the same vision, same employees, just under the different name, which is now Ironmark. To your other point, yes, we do. We kind of specialize in the mixed use multifamily area. I'm not saying that's all we do. We've done some corporate headquarters work. We've done 4 or 5 hospitality hotel projects. But over the past decade or so, to your point about urban infill, we've kind of been became known for that, kind of working on the tight postage stamp properties in uptown and downtown. We are, however, starting to see more suburban projects being built. I guess, you know, with everything that's been going on in Minneapolis the last year or two, different zoning restrictions and affordability requirements, I think developers are kind of migrating out to the suburbs. At least that's what I'm seeing. We'll obviously build anywhere there's demand. Really, at the end of the day, for us to be successful, you know, we just have strong relationships and collaboration and try to be 100% focused on serving our clients.
Yeah, you touched on an important point there about some of the trends towards the suburbs and maybe not as much in Minneapolis proper as perhaps there used to be. What are your thoughts on that? It sounds like you're still obviously working in Minneapolis as well as the suburbs, but do you have any thoughts on just kind of what the impact has been of some of the changes we've seen with the zoning and the maybe some of the public safety concerns, things like
Yeah,
that?
like I said, I mean, definitely there's still developments downtown in the urban areas, right? You see cranes all over the sky. I think it's slowed down a bit. While there is still development and buildings being constructed downtown, I mean, if you drive out to any of the suburban areas right now, you see cranes in the air all over too, which I feel hasn't been that substantial in the last few years. So like I said, I think with some of the different zoning ordinances and the affordability requirements and yeah, the public safety issues in the last 12 to 18 months have been an obvious probably reason for that. I think going downtown Minneapolis now, you really start to feel a comeback, which is refreshing. But I still feel the lack of housing out in the suburbs and people even maybe migrating away from the city is still going to drive the suburban demand we're going to still see an uptick in that for probably quite some time.
Mm-hmm. So are you seeing more multifamily projects out in the suburbs? What exactly are you seeing out there?
You know, a little bit different than the urban infill product. We have a few deals going on out in different suburban areas, and they're, they're totally different than what you do downtown. They're on huge parcels of land. A lot of them are spread out. They're hundreds and hundreds of feet long. Big buildings, 150, 200, 250 unit deals. From market rate to assisted living to senior to 55 plus. We're kind of seeing all the product out there. So I'd say the biggest difference is just the sheer mass of these projects out there. They're able to, instead of going high, a lot of them are 4 stories, maybe 5, and just spread out.
Mm-hmm. Do you do much in the way of senior housing or age?
Yeah, we've done a few senior projects. We're working on one right now. That's one of our suburban projects. Obviously, you're seeing those go up all over as well.
Mhm.
It's a piece of the market that still has demand. I think, not to bring up COVID right away, but I think COVID really slowed that market down, as a lot of the seniors didn't really want to be up moving, in the middle of a move during the pandemic. But now as that's subsiding, I think we'll probably continue to see that market grow as well.
Yeah, I just recently saw a report that senior housing as a share of multifamily housing in general has been going down, shrinking a bit in recent years. But it sounds like you're expecting that to come back. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, I think as things start to normalize now, as we get over this hump that we've been in for the past 18 months or so, I think it will. I'm not the developer building them.
Right.
We'll build them, but it's just something, just a thought.
Yeah, for sure. And so I understand you're based right there in Uptown. What has that been like in the past year, running a business there?
Yeah, so yeah, right. Our office is on Lake Street in Uptown. It's been quite active in the area. Everything from, we're not too far from kind of the hub of a lot of the unrest that's been happening. So yes, we've been boarded up a couple times, and there's been thankfully not our building, but there's been multiple buildings around us that have been vandalized. We've taken some precautions during some of those really active days. We would, send employees home to work from home. Really what we were affected most by is, we had a lot of active job sites in both downtown and uptown during that time.
Mhm.
So we take extra security measures, hire, typically we'd shut jobs down if it got really active. But we'd hire security and just take extra precaution in some of those high intensity zones. But we were fortunate enough to really not have a lot happen. I
Mhm.
know there were some structures during that time that got heavily vandalized, or in a few cases burnt to the ground. So,
Yeah.
being here and being close to it, it still feels normal to us. I mean, it's kind of where we've been here since conception. So,
Mhm.
Lake Street still has a lot of work to do to get back to where it was, and we're looking at some options to help with that effort too. So this is kind of our home, and we don't plan on really going anywhere for quite some time.
Okay. Yeah, it's been interesting just seeing what's been happening there, driving around, and not too long ago seeing National Guard troops out and about and things like that. So it's just kind
Yeah,
of
it wasn't too long ago where I'd drive a couple blocks east, and yeah, there was blocks of armored trucks with armed guards, and it was kind of surreal, but they were there to protect us, and whatever measures they took at that point obviously worked, because not a lot happened after they were up in these areas. So
yeah, it personally made me feel good that they were out there. And so,
right,
you know,
right.
but what other trends are you seeing? It sounds like you're seeing some trends in the luxury rentals market here in town. What can you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody has been around rent shopping or apartment shopping, you know that there's been a lot of obviously a lot of market rate product, but also a lot of luxury rate product like you just mentioned. And they're popping up all over the place. I think I'm hearing, and I'm sure it's not a new trend, but I think there's a lot of demand for empty nesters that either want to keep their property out in the suburbs or sell it and downsize and minimize. So I think that's probably what, again, I'm not a market rate study guy and I'm not a developer, but I think that's probably what's driving that market a lot is either the younger professionals or the empty nest type clientele that want to fill those properties. And yeah, there's a lot of luxury rentals around this area, even around Lake Makaskat, that are very luxurious and very expensive. So, and they seem to be filling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like they've just even during COVID, there's still a lot of that happening. And what do you how has your business fared during the pandemic, and how has that affected your workload and just your business in general?
You know, we've been pretty fortunate. We've had a lot of good projects that have carried us through. I mean, at the beginning to the middle of the pandemic, we did have a couple projects, two specific in Northeast Minneapolis. We were building right across the street from one another. I think it was a how big were they? 135 unit deal and 175 unit deal. And we actually pumped the brakes on those in March when things got really bad, and we kind of hit pause and kind of took a reset, and they actually ended up starting up about a month, 2 months later. There were definitely challenges to work through with just protecting the people on the ground, making sure they were doing all the necessary COVID protocols. So there was that piece of it, and then just kind of the overall what it's done to our supply chain and getting materials. And there's still issues today with that. As if you order furniture, you can't get a couch from some vendor online for it's 12 months out or 8 months out. So we're seeing a lot of that. So to mitigate that, we've kind of implemented still today kind of new in-house rules as to where we maybe wouldn't buy something until it was 3 months out. Now we're buying it 7, 8, 9, 10 months in advance. So we've kind of really ramped up our buyout schedule process to get things bought. And that way, if you discover it's not available, there's still time to switch manufacturers, switch the product type to get the client what they need, even in this, very odd time that we're in.
Yeah, so it's all about good planning and just
It totally is about good planning, yeah, just to mitigate as much as you can up front, because like I said, it's some of the lead times on some of these items, if you can get them at all, are just insane. So that's how
yeah,
you head it off. We try our best.
I heard just from a recent builder, they're looking at like a 9-month lead time or something like that for steel. And
Yeah.
So sounds like
Yeah,
that.
there's even we're in a busy time of the market, so even if it's not COVID directly related, there's certain lead times on product. Like I use precast concrete, for example. Precast wall panels are out. There's a lead time on those right now, like 20 weeks or so. So that there's items like that where when you sign a deal, you have to get some commitments in ink right away in order to hit your deadlines, 6 or so months down the road.
Mm-hmm. What are you seeing on the pricing front with regard to lumber and steel, et cetera? Is that
Yeah, so for material costs, thank God lumber came down. Lumber's back to where it should be. A few months back, 3, 4, 5 months back, it was, I think, at all-time high levels, which was scary, to be honest. And we had to kind of think of ways that when we were pricing out projects for clients, is how do we try to mitigate that and hedge against the fact that hopefully it will come back down. So we had to get creative with our clients, and thankfully, we keep a very open book process throughout it all, and you're kind of riding it together. So, but like I said, lumber's back down. I think you're still going to see some material slow escalated increases for steel and other plumbing type material items, insulation, that kind of stuff. But I think we're out of the crazy point where we were 3-4 months ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, just looking ahead a little bit, what is your outlook for the local construction market? Do you think things will get better, worse, stay the same approximately?
Well, I hope they continue to get better for our sake, but we're feeling pretty good about it. We got a good backlog. I continue to see things and new projects pop up almost on a weekly basis. So the development community is still active, which is good. I feel like there was a little lull kind of after the COVID hump, where people kind of had to catch their breath and catch back up and get back into it. But I feel like we're kind of on the back end of that. And like I said, if you you can get in your car and drive uptown, downtown, or in any suburban market right now, and you see cranes all over the place. So that's always a good feeling. One of the indicators that we like to look at is I like to stay in touch with a lot of our architects, and if the architects are continuing to stay busy and drawing and continuing to hire people, it's kind of the indicator on the front end of where our market's going to be. So I remain optimistic, but I have to be. That's what we do for our business. So I think we'll just continue to see people building. But like I said at the beginning of our interview here, I predict it's going to continue to stay out in the suburbs and still building down in the urban areas. But I see it more on the suburbs than anything.
Okay. And just kind of on a related front, the labor situation, of course, is always a challenge, and not just in construction, but driving to even a fast food place. I've seen signs up saying that they've had to cut back their hours because they can't find enough workers, which is really kind of shocking. But how are you doing on the labor front, and are you getting the workers you need?
Yeah, fortunately, I think our industry is probably less affected by that piece of it than per se the service industry, like you just brought up. Yeah, I saw a Starbucks that was actually closed 2 days ago due to that lack of employees. So a lot of the subcontractor market still remains busy. I mean, there's guys that are still hungry for work. So we haven't had, fortunately, any real issues with that. But again, I think it hasn't really hit our industry like it's hit some others.
Okay. Well, hopefully things will keep moving along and keep you guys busy and all of us busy. So,
right.
Any particular projects you're working on that you'd care to mention?
Yeah, I would. One project I'm really excited about. It's kind of very unique for us. We just broke ground on a 12-story structural metal stud mid-rise up at the U of M. It's a student housing deal, 280 some units, but there's a lot of bedrooms in it. There's 885 bedrooms. So it's gonna serve the future students very well. It's kind of a unique building. There's not a lot of structural metal stud buildings in the city, I don't believe. And what's great about that is, the lot itself isn't very large up on the U of M. And we were able to create a very dense project, and 885, bodies in a building is substantial on such a small piece of property. So it allowed us to go up and not out. With wood, you can typically only do, we like to call it 5/1 or 5/2, which means 5 stories of stick framing above level or 2 of precast. So you kind of maxed out to kind of the 7-story type project. So we're excited to see this. We're just getting out of the ground right now. We got a couple of our tower cranes just went up. So it's about a 2-year project. So it's going to be fun to watch that kind of come to fruition.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love to learn more about that project sometime. Maybe we can set aside some time to chat just about that. And
Yeah, I would love to share. Like I said, I'm really excited about it. I've been working on the front end of that deal for probably a couple of years, so to see it kind of take shape is exciting, and I would love to share it with everyone.
sounds great. Well, Brent, you covered a lot of ground there. Is there anything else you'd like to add before I let you go?
I don't think so. I appreciate the interview though, and yeah, I look forward to, like I said, sharing. I'm sure we'll do some other pieces on the kind of our pinnacle project, I'd call it, up at the U.
Mhm.
Um, and it'll be exciting couple years.
Absolutely. Look forward to learning more about that and kind of keeping keeping up to date on everything you're doing. So,
Well, great. I
yeah,
appreciate the interview, Brian.
yeah. Thank you, Brent. Have a good day.
Have a good weekend. Thank you.
You too.